Welcome to another episode of Systematic Geekology. This is a space where we seek to create and cultivate healthy conversations between those things we geek out on and the philosophical and theological questions that often arise out of our fandoms. Like, what does it mean to be human? What makes a hero? What makes a villain? How do the stories and narratives we geek out on shape how we live in the world? We are your priest to the geeks. We aren't all ordained, but we see ourselves as mediators at the intersection of geek culture and going deeper in our faith. We don't always have to agree, but we do respect each other, and we see everyone as a beloved child of God. Everyone geeks out on something, so come geek out with us and enjoy the show.
This show is a proud member of the On Us All Podcast Network.
Would you rather be a member of an intergalactic police force or a mutant? This is Systematic Geekology. We are the Priest of the Geeks, and this is another What's News episode where we talk about all the latest things in geek culture. And as you can probably tell from that intro, we are going to be focusing tonight on the pilot episode of the new Lantern series on HBO, which just premiered this week. And then we will also be discussing X-Men 97 Season 2, as well as the casting announcements for the MCU X-Men movie. A lot of great stuff happening in the geek world right now, and I am very excited to have a great panel here tonight. I am Kevin Schaefer, one of your geekologists, and I am here with a full team of Green Lanterns and mutants alike. So we have with us Christian, Ashley, Andy Walsh, and Jill Elizabeth. How are y'all doing tonight?
Fantastic. It's a good time to be a geek.
It really
Absolutely.
is. I'll never understand the people who are like, oh, geek culture is dead, pop culture. I miss pop culture, blah, blah. I'm like, we have more options now than any time in history. And if you don't like one thing, guess what? There's a million other options. So, I mean, that's a sentiment I will not understand. We never run out of things to talk about. And these in particular, I'm really excited to hear all of you guys' thoughts on. This one especially, we had to get Andy on this one too, because I guess we haven't even discussed X-Men 97 really at all yet, because the last episode where we touched on it, I think you weren't on that one. So you are seeing one of your all-time favorite comic book character appear in this season. Got to get your thoughts there. And Jill and Christian, myself, I was very excited for Lantern. So we've got a ton to talk about. And I want to thank everyone for joining us here tonight. If you are watching live on YouTube or you're listening to this later on any podcast platforms, thank you so much for checking out the show. And if you want to support us and you want to learn more about what we do at Systematic Geekology, you can click on the links in the description, find out ways to support us. You can check out our Fourth Wall site, where we've got a lot of cool merchandise on there, ways to connect. We're very accessible. We want to hear from you all, especially on social media, and so feel free to reach out. Feel free to suggest topics, and that would be great. And if you are a supporter, you will get a shout out on the show. And tonight I want to give a shout out to Daniel Sigmund. Thank you so much for your support. It really helps us out. And again, if you want a shout out of your own, just click on those links, find out ways that you can become a member and support all the geeky things we do here at Systematic Geekology. Sorry, it's been a busy week, so if I'm at all ramble and word vomit, I apologize in advance, but it's always a good way to end the week on a Thursday night with the crew here. So, well, let's get into it. So first off, we have as always, a lightning round. Before we get into our main topics, let's just go around, talk about some of the other things we've been geeking out on. So Christian, I'll start with you. What is your one of your lightning round picks tonight?
Well, besides all the Disney movies I rewatched with my niece while she's down here, my dad, brother, and I have been watching some horror movies while she's at bed. So got to see The Last House, which is more sci-fi and horror, which was fine. Also got to see over like 3 years, Nefarious, which was pretty good. Way better than I expected it was.
Very cool. Yeah. Is there a particular Disney one your niece is like obsessed with? Because I went through the Frozen stages. I went through Turning Red. Like, oh yeah, it varies. But
We got her to wean off of Anna Elsa this week, as she calls the film.
Yeah.
And got her to watch Aladdin and 101 Dalmatians, but she's really into Sleeping Beauty. Aurora is her favorite right now.
Nice. Aurora. Nice. It's funny. That is a classic. I like it.
Yes.
Very cool. Yeah.
The
My niece
scary.
is now on... Yeah, it really is. It's got a creepy aesthetic. But yeah. My niece is now on Mrs. Doubtfire. We feel like she's older now and has gone... Yeah. Because we're past a lot of the Frozen days and all that. But yeah, so it's fun kind of getting to show her some of the like a little bit older movies now. But yeah, very cool. Andy, what about you?
Yeah, I will start by apologizing if my sound and or video quality is off. I'm on the road this time, but it's actually X-Men related, and maybe we'll get into that later.
Okay.
But for the lightning round, I will call out the Vision Quest trailer that we got coming out of E3. I am super excited about this. I think that the Marvel Disney Plus shows have been their best when they get weird and do things that wouldn't work as a movie. So WandaVision leaned into the TV format. I thought She-Hulk, did well with that. Wonder Man just recently. And so this looks like it's more in that vein of doing something that you couldn't do, that wouldn't necessarily maybe fly as a movie, that takes advantage of the episodic format a little bit more. It's a little bit more experimental. Plus, I've enjoyed the Vision in all of his previous appearances. He and Paul Bettany and James Spader seem to be having a grand old time, and James Spader's beard. I look forward to the three of them and whoever else. I'm curious to see how they incorporate all the other AIs that we've heard in the films but not yet seen.
That was a great trailer. I was also very excited when they announced that, and I was really interested in the trailer. They said that this is part of the trilogy of WandaVision, Agatha all along, and now this, which I think is really interesting. I don't know a case where you have like a trilogy of interconnected shows like that. Of course, there's ongoing series, they're like big franchises like Star Trek and that kind of thing, but it's really interesting to describe it in that fashion. But same to you. I love those characters. I love seeing Ultron again, especially in a very different sense here. So really excited for that one.
Yeah, three shows in three different genres too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Yeah. Good pick. Jill, what about you? And feel free to add to that conversation as well.
Yeah, I cannot wait for that show. I loved Agatha all along and WandaVision. I actually just really, really enjoy the TV shows. Like Andy said, Loki was the only one I struggled with. Time travels are really confusing for me. But I love the Marvel TV shows, Marvel Disney. But I was watching D23 highlights, and there was like a Lin-Manuel Miranda musical compilation that they did. And I have just been watching it on repeat. It's so good. And then his acceptance speech, it was like essentially a Lifetime Achievement Award that he got. And he sang his acceptance speech to an Alan Menken song. And it was just really, really good for my musical geek heart. And then I finally finished the last season of The Bear. I was putting off watching the last episode because I didn't want it to end. I finally watched it, and it was the best ending of a series I've ever seen. Just loved it.
High praise. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, and a huge musical theater geek as well. So I love any time. I'm really interested in seeing what Lin-Manuel does next, and I really hope he does another movie because Tick Tick Boom is one of my all-time favorite movies. That was the best. So yeah, always.
Well, he's coming back to Broadway in the spring with Warriors.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, he can do. I want to say he can do no wrong, but I'm always gonna be in tune with anything he does. So
he does a lot right.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, then for me, so I saw The End of Oak Street last weekend, the new David Robert Mitchell film that's produced by J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot, starring Anna Hathaway and Ewan McGregor. It's like the year of Anne Hathaway, which, I mean, as my friend said, I was like, as God intended. I mean, this is like, nothing wrong with Anne Hathaway blockbuster after another. But this one I was really excited for because David Robert Mitchell had directed It Follows, which I think is one of the best horror movies of the last decade. Well, it was a little older, beyond a decade ago, but still the last 10, 15 years. And, this felt like a kind of return to pulpy 80s movies in the Amblin Entertainment vein. It very much is like that. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. The dialogue is not great, and it, could have had some script patches, but from a visual standpoint and from just again, the pulpy 80s aesthetic, I loved all of that. And I've been on record on the podcast saying I'm not the biggest fan of the Jurassic Park franchise. I love the original, but especially the world ones, it's just, I'm not as into, but dinosaurs roaming through a suburb is kind of the Jurassic Park sequel I wanted, and this is I think what they should have done. So even though it's not technically a Jurassic Park movie, it could easily fit into that universe. Granted, there are some other sci-fi elements that are kind of separate from that, but I just really like that concept, and it was a good fusion of kind of the horror sensibilities of David Robert Mitchell with the more sentimental Spielberg aesthetic of J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot. So it was a fun time. It's a very good Friday night blockbuster. Not oh my gosh, best movie of the year or anything. But I mean, Anne Hathaway kicking butt against some dinosaurs, and there's some other fun action and horror sequences. And so, yeah, I did really enjoy that one. And then another one I just want to hit on really quick, very much darker series, and one that I have more a personal connection to because of one of the actors, but the series Furious on Hulu, which is a new crime drama thriller from Liz Meriwether, who is the creator of New Girl, and she's done more dramas in the past few years. And this is a series inspired by the 80s film Black Widow, and it's about an FBI agent who is hunting a serial killer, who the serial killer is avenging the men who abused her when she was a teenager, and she's trying to take down this very Epstein-like sex ring. And so it's obviously very dark material there, but one of the reasons I jumped on it was because there is a disabled actor in the series who comes in episode 3, who I followed for a while. We're Facebook friends. His name's Steve Way, and he plays a character that I love what they do with him in the series. I don't want to spoil it and provide his connection to one of the characters, but Steve is excellent in it. I actually have a call with him at work next week, so I do get to do some fun things at work occasionally. But it is a great show, very well written, and even though it's very dark, it also brings the comic relief and humor at just the right moments because of Liz Meriwether's background. So excellent series. I'm really enjoying and invested in the first season. But yeah, so awesome. Well, great lightning round picks. Now I know we have a lot to get to tonight, so let us get on to the main events here. So we will start with Good Cop, Sad Cop, as Andy puts it here. The new HBO series Lanterns, which is based on the Green Lantern comics from the DC universe. This is a series created by Chris Bundy, Tom King, and Damon Lindelof, starring Aaron Pierre as Jon Stewart, Kyle Chandler as Hal Jordan, also starring Kelly MacDonald, Garrett Dillahunt, Jason Ritter, and Porna. I'm gonna probably butcher her last name, but Jaganathan, I think. It's a really good ensemble cast. So I want to shut up for a minute and kind of hear everyone's initial thoughts. Who is itching the most to talk about their initial? And also, spoiler alert, we are going to get into spoilers on, it's only the pilot episode that is aired so far, but there is a big twist at the end of it. Kristen, do you want to start and give kind of, I kind of want to hear your thoughts going into the series and your initial impressions of the pilot.
Okay. Just for frame of reference, I can't see any of you right now. My computer is frozen, but I'm still recording. I can hear you.
Okay, cool. Cool.
So that's fun. But we talked a little bit before about this, and I was hesitant getting in, but also hopeful. I'm still there. They can lose me, but right here and now, I think this is a good enough setup to keep me in. I just have some gripes with how they're presenting information and design choices and stuff like that.
That's fair. And I think we will get into, it's a very specific aesthetic. It was, and I also have some insight into, as soon as I watched the pilot, I mean, I'd been following all the behind the scenes for a while, but I watched like the official podcast and an interview with all three creators. So I really want to get into some of that. Andy, I also know a little bit about some of your thoughts when that first trailer dropped, but did anything change in the build up to the series, and also what were your impressions of the pilot?
Yeah, I mean, they had that second trailer that I think was a little bit of a course correction. No, wait, seriously, this is a Green Lantern show. There will be ring constructs
Yes.
and so forth. And so, that I appreciated that. I was probably the target audience for that panicked advertising. But, I'm of two minds about the show. As a show for me, I thought it was a solid first episode. I will probably continue to enjoy it. But for whatever reason, with this particular one, it just really grated on me that this is a show that very much is not for younger people.
Yes.
I don't understand how you make a Green Lantern show that somebody under maybe 14, 15 can't watch. I don't understand how you make a tie-in to your Superman movie that young people can't watch. It's gotten me thinking more and more, just like, we have The Boys and Invincible and things that have been specifically made to handle adult themes in superhero genre. I think we need to let the younger people have the characters that were designed for younger people. So, with that caveat, as a show for me, it was working, but I'm disappointed that it's a show that's only for me and not for a wider audience.
That's fair, and I'll get into my thoughts on that in a second, because it also relates to the rest of the lineup right now at DC. So it's a really good point. And then Jill, I know you haven't finished the pilot yet, but you saw some of it, and I wasn't sure what your thoughts were going into the series and kind of your background with Green Lanterns.
So I just enjoy it as a casual fan. It's not a storyline that I've like really geeked out on. I really liked the Green Lantern character in the Superman movie. I think it's interesting what both Andy and Christian pointed out. I just kind of expect that from HBO. I never think they're going to put out something that I can like sit down and watch with my kids. But I do understand the frustration of like, it's Green Lantern. Can we have it be for kids too? Or like at least like a younger teen audience. But I could tell from the trailer, the first trailer, I was like, is this True Detectives? Like Yellowstone? Like, this cannot be Green Lantern. Nothing is even green. But I won't comment on the episode because I have so much to watch. I'll just listen for here.
And to be fair, like there was no mistaking from the advertising that this was what we were going to get.
Yeah,
right.
Having seen it, it was still a reminder that this could have been and maybe should have been different.
They chose to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Fair, yeah.
Anyway, well, the really interesting thing, so like I watched the interview with Chris Bundy, Tom King, and Damon Lindelof, and I was really interested in, I knew that this show had been pitched as that from the beginning, but I was interested in like why it was three creators, like how did it really evolve, and they were very upfront about the origins. It was that Tom King was in the original writer's room when James Gunn and Peter Safran took over DC, and they assembled this brain trust of writers and directors to kind of come up with initial ideas. And this was one of the first ideas Tom King pitched was, what if we do True Detective with Green Lanterns? And once James Gunn wanted to move forward with the project, they brought in Damon Lindelof, and Damon Lindelof obviously has a huge TV showrunning background, but he didn't want to be the primary showrunner because he was a little burnt out, but he still wanted to support the vision. And then that's why they brought in Chris Mundy to spearhead it. So they had these three creators collaborating on the series, but it was always pitched as that. My thoughts in terms of that, like, because I totally agree. It's like I want to show my niece and nephews DC stuff that they would enjoy, and obviously I'm not showing lanterns to them. But I think you could have this if it weren't for the fact that all the other series, both like that have come out so far and that are in development, are all very adult oriented. So Creature Commandos, Peacemaker, Lanterns, that's 3 in a row that are all R-rated. And, you know, I would like to see some diversity going forward in terms of, okay, you can have a series movie for adults, you can have one for kids, but the target audience and the movies and shows that they put out so far in DC have been very adult leaning. Even Superman has like really dark elements to it that I wouldn't show probably my nephews. I might show my niece, like she could handle some of that, but and then Supergirl also has some dark elements as well. But then like we've got Clayface coming out, we've got Mr. Miracle. I cannot imagine that's going to be kid friendly either. So it would be nice if they could have like, you know, something like this, and then do, you know, a fun Flash series, or, you know, they were like Booster Gold was in development at one point. So I agree. It's totally fine. And I think it's good to have more mature stories, but also balance it out with family friendly entertainment. And you can have all of that share the same universe. But that said, I did really enjoy the pilot. I mean, I think it sets up a lot. I'm curious how they're going to handle all of this going forward, because it's not just the juggling act of so the big twist that a lot of people suspected from the beginning, but they weren't sure if they were going to do it this early on. So the main story we see in the pilot takes place in 2016, but at the end of the pilot, it jumps to 2026, and we find that Hal has been murdered in the same football field where they are doing the investigation of these aliens who were killed in 2016. And John visits and sees the body. So, you know, that right up there was a big, twist to kick off the series. So you have that element. You have an alien invasion coming. There's a lot that the pilot sets up, and I'm curious how it will all play out over the course of through the first 8-episode season. But I am very intrigued, and I think this probably the strongest element of the show so far is phenomenal casting. Kyle Chandler is excellent as Hal. Aaron Pierre is phenomenal as John. I love the Training Day buddy cop dynamic between them. So I'm very excited to see that continue. But it is a lot to juggle. And yes, I do wish they had more kid-friendly stuff in addition to some of the darker elements with stuff like Lanterns.
And I'm not opposed to any of these things being in a show at all. Like,
right.
People naturally swear all the time. But when it's like every other word out of someone's mouth, like, I tune out. It's like, I'm sure people like this exist in real life, but why would I ever be around someone like that? Like, it's all over the place there. I'm still not a fan of making Hal as old as he is. However, if you're going to do this, Chandler was the perfect person to portray this role because he is fulfilling the role they have for him well. I don't care for how much of a jerk, I could use other words, that our Hal Jordan is here. That's not the Hal that I know. But they obviously have something I want to tell. There's obviously a reason why he hasn't backed up himself since 2006, I think. Yeah, because it would have been 10 years before. It's probably something really bad happened that turned him to be so cynical about everything. And that's why he is the way he is. And I figured out, obviously, we had the idea from before that there was the idea he might, die at some point here if he's dead at all. And the way that we're going to keep him in the series, well, they already presented it with the fact that he can talk to him in the ring with the Hal from 2006. Other than that, like, I did enjoy the interrogation scene that they did here. I thought that was phenomenally done. And like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about Nebraska. Like, let's talk about the football teams, big in Nebraska, all this stuff, which is what you would do for a cover story. But hey, where does Harry Potter go to school? You wouldn't learn general information like that for infiltration. And you don't have an opinion on Barack Hussein Obama as a guy from Nebraska. I mean, that was a pretty funny line because there'd be a dead tell in that point that someone was an infiltrator of some sort. So exactly who they are, I'm trying to figure that out, whether they're associated with the Manhunters in some way or there's some third, force in this series. I'm interested in that. I think John as well, perfectly cast. The background we get for him in the beginning is well done. What is the difference between showing no fear and not having fear at all is an interesting concept to play with here, because obviously we are supposed to be horrified with everything that we see his dad do. But that's turned John into the man he is today. So how does that play into now? Yeah, I'm looking forward to what comes next. I just have my gripes.
That's fair. And also, I mean, I know we've had this conversation many times about this is just the nature of TV in general. I'm curious how they're going to, with everything they set up, how it's going to play out in just 8 episodes. Like, this is the kind of show I wish we were back in the heyday of 22 episode seasons.
Yes.
Like, you could have a Smallville length series here, and I'd watch it because there is so much dynamic setup here and so much mystery and intrigue. And I mean, Damon Lindelof worked in, on Lost and everything when it was 22 episode seasons. So I do wish that, but nonetheless, still excited. Andy, anything else you want to add to that in terms of just like the mystery element, any kind of theories or any of that?
No theories. I actually am content with an 8-episode series. I think I've seen enough examples of detective shows recently where doing a single murder mystery kind of thing over a season can get a little bit tricky. Because you just have to throw out so many red herrings that it gets to be a little bit hard to buy into the story of a given episode because it's episode 4. They're not going to solve the mystery. But I am here for. I've been on the Aaron Pierre bandwagon since Rebel Ridge. I'm here for him as Jon Stewart. I think that is fantastic casting, and he didn't disappoint in episode 1. I'm glad that he's getting to be in the film next year. Even regardless of whether I wind up liking that film or not, I am glad that he's going to be the Green Lantern that we see on screen in that film. And I think it is an interesting mystery story. I'm not totally sold on the Macon family dynamics yet. I found, like Christian, I found that interrogation scene to be the most compelling part of the episode, and possibly the bar sequence where we realize that actually Hal Jordan has a purpose for behaving poorly the way that he is. That he hasn't completely lost his ability to be a space cop. There are definitely good elements. And like I said, as a show for me, I'm perfectly content. But I regret that some other folks are missing out on the ability to enjoy a Green Lantern show because of all the swearing and the fairly direct sex scene, although maybe not quite as Games of Thronesy as we might get on a 9 p.m. on a Sunday from HBO.
That was a funny well, I do love the banter between Hal and John there when once John realizes who the woman is, and that's when Hal gives him a thumbs up, kind of in less than 24 hours he hooked up with someone's wife, and that's a point of pride for Hal. So it was I love their banter there. I also the opening scene, which I did kind of cheat there because they released the first 5 minutes last week, a few days before the episode dropped, and I was too excited about the show. I couldn't wait, so I did watch that. But the scene when John's father takes him outside and does target practice on him by shooting an apple off his head, I was like, wow, that it just is so. It's really impressive when you can show so much about a character in such a short amount of time with very little dialogue. That was excellent writing there. That says so much about his upbringing, about how some people view superheroes, because at that point, like, Hal is this like charismatic hero, and the father is interested. That was an excellent scene. So right from the get-go, it had a great hook. But yeah, and then one of the things with the creators they were talking about is James Gunn did not give them a lot of parameters for the series. They were able to really run wild, but the only thing they really had was Superman had already been written when they were developing the series. It hadn't come out yet, but they knew the story there. And so all they knew was the question that they were asking was, okay, why is Guy the Green Lantern there? So they were working to answer that. But beyond that, they had pretty much free reign. They didn't have to have these characters at a particular place by the end of the season. So I like that, and that makes it really interesting. I think that is the benefit of what they're doing with DC, in that they are trying to tell not so much like standalone stories, but not having everything so interconnected that you have to watch everything in order to know what's happening. I like that you can, they're either giving some creative freedom to the showrunners here. And yeah, that makes me hopeful for more future projects. I like that this is a very different series from Superman. So yeah. So overall, I mean, I know we still got 7 episodes this season. There's a lot of ways it could go, but I am very interested in the pilot. I agree they need to do more family friendly stuff to balance it out. But yeah, this was an interesting take, and I'm curious to see where it'll go. But any other thoughts on Lanterns before we move on to the mutants?
Good.
Sounds good. Awesome. Well, I know we're all itching to talk all things mutants. So before we get into X-Men 97 Season 2, they did finally announce the cast of the MCU X-Men at D23. So obviously we already knew Sadie Sink was Jean. They had announced Samara Weaving as Emma Frost about a week or so before. Jake Schreier was announced as the director a while ago. He did Thunderbolts, and he came from the series Beef on Netflix. And then the new announcements, we have Kit Connor as Cyclops, Indy Navarrete as Rogue, Maya Boyd as Storm, Christopher Abbott as Professor X, and then the big one where they had him on the screen because he was filming another movie, but had been heavily rumored that Adam Driver will be playing Mr. Sinister. So still no Magneto confirmation yet. But I just want to hear all your thoughts about particularly any of the casting here, and also the lineup of mutants. So Cyclops, Jean, Storm, Emma Frost, and Rogue, that's which is not the original 5 X-Men lineup, and I think that's a good thing. This is an interesting one here. So Andy, we can start with you because I know you are the mutant expert. So what are kind of your initial thoughts about this casting?
So this casting was exciting for me on 2 levels. On one level, my daughter, when she heard about it, was like, well, I've already bought my ticket. I want to see this movie. And so that was very gratifying because, she has not been the biggest X-Men fan, not necessarily anything against them, but just that's not the movie she grew up with, right? The X-Men movies were kind of over and done with by the time she was old enough to appreciate these things. And so, yeah, that was very cool to hear. She is a fan of Sadie Sink from Stranger Things. We also had the opportunity, she took us to New York to see Sadie Sink in a play called John Proctor is the Villain, which I think was kind of her big Broadway debut. She was phenomenal in that show. And we got, my daughter actually got to say hello to her and get something signed from her afterwards. I was about 3 feet behind, so I didn't get to say hi to Sadie Sink, but was in her orbit. So yeah, that's great casting. My daughter is also a fan of Kit Connor from Heartstoppers, I think, whatever Kit Connor is known for. And I think there might have been one of these other actors that she knew. But anyway, so she's very excited. So that was cool to hear. And then also I could not be more over the moon to have Adam Driver finally playing Daniel Essex, Mr. Sinister, on screen. They toyed with us in the post credits of, was it
Apocalypse?
Apocalypse, yes, thank you.
Yeah,
and then I think it was also kind of hinted at in New Mutants.
Yes.
And so now, yeah, to finally get Mr. Sinister, definitely the best X-Men villain that hasn't been done on screen in this film. And Adam Driver is just kind of an excellent, weird, intense presence that I think will go well with that character. I'm curious to see what their take will be on him. He's had some kind of different flavors in the comics, but I'm here for it. And to the point that if there isn't a Magneto in this film, I don't think we need to lose sleep over that. I'm not super familiar with the work of most of these folks. Christopher Abbott was decent as somebody with mental powers in Craven. Not a great film, but he did fine in that part, and had to pretend to manipulate things with his brain. So seems like good casting for Professor X. I've seen Samara Weaving in some things. I have no worries about her being a good Emma Frost. My money is that they do a kind of co-headmaster thing with Emma Frost and Professor X. Just looking at this lineup, that's where I think they'll go with this, but we'll see. Since she's a little bit older than the main X-Men, it's an interesting lineup. Scott and Jean, Rogue and Storm. If that's, I'm guessing that's kind of be the main field team. We'll see if they cast anybody else, but it's a nice, a few original X-Men, a few sort of giant-size X-Men / 80s Claremont X-Men. Some good, if they go with the dynamics from the comics, some good relationships to work with there. And Jake Schreier did an excellent job with an ensemble movie in the Thunderbolts. So right now I have no qualms about this film. I feel like there was something else I was going to say, but I'll let somebody else talk, and maybe it'll come to me, or maybe it won't need to because I've rambled enough already.
You're good. I'm all for rambling about this, but Jill, do you have any thoughts on any of the actors here, or just like general hopes for this movie?
Well, I have to disagree with Andy. I will lose sleep if we don't have Magneto, because you guys know he's my favorite X-Men or X-Men villain, whatever role he's in. It's complicated. I need to see Magneto. Yeah. I'm very excited. I liked, getting a taste of Sadie Sink as Jean Grey in the Spider-Man movie. I know you guys all got together and talked about that already. Man, she's so bad. Like Jean Grey is just so bad always. And she doesn't need to be that evil. So I'm excited to see like where it goes. And yeah, I'm like looking forward to this. I love a reboot. I love that we're getting younger cast. Because it's going to grow, right? That can our kids will get involved and they'll make more movies, which I'm excited about. And I'm happy that there's no Wolverine. Like we don't need him to be the star. Good.
And Jill, I do think we will see Magneto. I agree with Andy in that I don't think he needs to be the main villain here, just because we've seen great Magneto stories for the past 26 years now on screen. So it's good to have a break. I like Mr. Sinister as a front and center villain. I also it's a big deal that they got Adam Driver to do this, because he's been rumored for different MCU roles, but they've never been able to pin him down. And I think after his experience with Star Wars, he was more reluctant to work with Disney again. So the fact that he agreed to, I think, yeah, absolutely. I think he, rightfully so. He was disappointed that they didn't greenlight his Ben Solo movie and a number of other things. And so it was, he must have, I think, really liked the vision that Jake Shearer had here. So I think, yeah. And then, the rest of the cast for me, obviously, you say he's a Sink fan, and then Andy Navarrete, even before Obsession, I knew her from Superman and Lois, which I thought she was great there. But I like that and then Samara Weaving, I know from the Ready or Not movies, and I only learned recently that she's Hugo Weaving's daughter, which I was like, duh, I didn't put that together.
I think it's niece.
Or niece, a niece, yeah. But still, relation there to Elrond, I probably should have put that together sooner. But yeah, I like our work. But I like that Kit Connor, Maya Boyd, and Christopher Abbott, I honestly really know nothing about. Like a lot of them come from theater backgrounds, but I like that I'm very unfamiliar with their work because I can just see them in these roles and get to, see what their versions are and not have to have any like preconceived notions about them as actors. I'm just really excited to see what they do here. So yeah, and I like the fusion of, like Andy said, first class characters and Giant Size X-Men Claremont era. I think it's smart to kind of fuse some of those together. So even though Beast is my favorite, I'm okay holding off on him for a little bit. And Wolverine and Magneto and, all the ones we've seen. Let's, give some, let some other characters shine. Let's get Storm and Rogue right. And Cyclops this time around. So I'm all for that. Christian, anything you want to add there to any of that?
Yeah, Sadie Sink, I already enjoyed her in Stranger Things and now as Jean Grey. I think she did a phenomenal job in that movie. Samara Weaving, like you, I know her, ready or not, and she was perfect there. I think she kind of nails the look of Emma Frost, and it already looks like, from what I've seen, she's been researching the role and the character. Go for it. Always happy when an actor does that. Most of them I don't know. Kit Connor, Maya Boyd, Christopher Abbott, no, but Indy, we both know from Obsession, and heard that she turned down a role for another horror film because she got this instead, which, you go, girl. That's a heck of a payday to continue on as Rogue, right? Yeah, Rogue. Then Adam Driver, of course, like, as you said earlier, like, got kind of shafted by his experience with the sequel trilogy, as all of us did in many ways. And I don't blame him because they've wanted him for years in the MCU. And he said, no, no, no. And they finally found something for it. Have him as Mr. Sinister. I was sold the moment I heard it. Like, it had been rumored for multiple months. And I'm in the spoilers subreddit. So I kind of knew it was going to be a thing, but I didn't know. And the reveal, chef's kiss. I'm looking forward to this. I think that they had a wonderful opportunity in presenting mutants to a general audience who maybe never watched an X-Men movie through a Spider-Man movie that's, already, $2 billion plus, and they're laughing their way to the bank. And I think this is a great way to do that.
And Andy never had to turn down Heat 2 that Michael Mann is doing with DiCaprio, and I'm like, that's bull. But I mean, it fits. Like, not only would she realize that, like, this is a multi-film deal here, but I mean, she's a huge nerd too. Like, she would, before, when she was in between jobs, she was partially paying rent by streaming on Twitch and stuff like that. So she's a huge geek at heart, which I love. So yeah. So very excited. I mean, May 2028 cannot come soon enough. I mean, I know we've got a lot of other cool stuff before then too, but this one's the big one. So, well, on that note, another big mutant thing going on is X-Men 97 season 2. I know we are running a little low on time here. I kind of already shared my thoughts on at the beginning of this season. So I kind of want to hear from anyone, Andy, Jill, Christian, any of y'all want to jump in first for general thoughts on this season and highlights?
I think this is inferior to season 1, but that doesn't make it bad. I think it had a really strong start, and the end really didn't lose me, but just felt incredibly, incredibly rushed. As there were parts of season 1, I felt the same way, especially like Inferno. Once again, I think they could have made that a full season if they really wanted to. But overall, I didn't enjoy my time here. I love the exploration we get with Apocalypse's character, seeing him through different periods of time and how that affects the X-Men in our present. We got to get him back to the 90s when they're the most vulnerable. Cringy line. I love it absolutely with all my heart. Colossus, I love the episode he showed up in, with the whole thing of, forgiveness, but also, can you forgive someone who is so obviously evil, like a Graydon Creed, and yet at the end of the day, his verdict was going to be one thing, but, Destiny, God, decided another thing. Not Destiny the character, Destiny the concept. I really enjoyed that. It's solid setup for season 3. I've heard rumors we may be going Krakoa, which could explain how we get certain characters back. And of course, heavy spoilers. Nightcrawler's sacrifice was perfectly in character, and I loved what they did with that.
And I was very much raving about the first half of the season. I do think the latter half was more rushed. So there was a lot that, again, going back to this, just TV and a lot of times need to be longer. And this is one that could have benefited from at least a few more episodes toward the end. But, still really good time. Andy, we have not really talked about the season yet because you weren't on the last one. But well, first off, I have to ask, what was your thoughts on the portrayal of your all-time favorite character, Multiple Man?
Man, was that a double-edged sword? Because on the one hand, just anytime anybody remembers that Multiple Man exists and that you can use him when you're doing X-Men properties, it's fun to see. It was fun to see the, pretty much just straight up Peter David OG X Factor lineup from the 90s, including the uniforms. All that was just spot on. But having them be kind of the bad guys, kind of the almost, ice allegory in the show, not a favorite. I was really hoping that I liked what they did with Polaris, and I was really hoping that that was going to lead to the rest of the team coming around, seeing the light, something like that. But I kind of get where they're coming from. I mean, that was the setup of X Factor of that team in that lineup in the 90s. Was they worked for the government, but they weren't rounding up kids and putting them in jail or not even in jail, in off the books detention center of questionable constitutionality. So yeah, really feel like that was a misstep for characters who could be used as heroes going forward. So I hope that doesn't mean that we've kind of burned that whole lineup except for Polaris. That said, I kind of expect that that's the case because they clearly are just churning through characters and concepts as fast as they can to get as much on screen, even if it's just for a moment. The way that every time Morph goes into battle, they turn him into somebody else just so that they can say that they put that character on screen for 12 cells. The way that we got the Uncanny X-Force Horseman for all 12 seconds, some great character designs from the Rick Remender and Jerome Opeña Uncanny X-Force, and then to not really do anything with them other than just kind of have them as a visual, right? That's clearly the approach this show is taking, is just kind of use the entire catalog of mutants to be backdrops for the core 12 characters or so to meander through. So I think I just have to accept that that's how they're doing the show, and hope that maybe someday, once the X-Men movie franchise has taken off, they'll see the light and do a live action X Factor investigation show the way that nature intended.
As nature intended. I mean, they're that's the thing. I like this season. There were so many concepts thrown out that I'm like, this could be a full season right here. And and I mean, I'm not opposed to having episodic storylines. Jill's texting us. She lost her connection. Hopefully we'll be able to rejoin. But yeah, I don't know how true this is, but I saw something earlier about some of Bo DeMayo's original plans for the season that were cut. Because that's the whole story there. He was fired before season 1 premiered, which is wild that he's still credited as an executive producer here. But anyway, there were apparently some of his ideas included an episode where a world where the X-Men never existed. There was more apocalypse stuff. There were so I think with 10 or 11 episodes, could be a little more fleshed out. But there were some really cool concepts, and I think Evan did a meme about this, but the Nightcrawler story at the very end, that was, it was a great arc for him. It was a great moment, very heartbreaking and emotional, as was, of course, what happens with Magneto this season, which I was hoping Jill can get back on because I want to talk with her about that. But we can do deeper dives in the future. But yeah, there's a lot of potential here, but it just felt like the first half was a little more structured, and then the latter was like, okay, here's a concept that we could expand on maybe in a movie in the future, but I'm like, oh, I want to see more of this now. I want to see more of like the government sanctioned X-Men and how it intertwines with X-Force and all that. And I agree, the like villainizing those characters was a lot, and I don't, and especially Andy, with you loving them so much, I know that was hard to stomach. It made some interesting choices.
And I think actually what almost bothered me the most was that I don't know that they were even really vilified, right? They were clearly antagonists in a way, but I don't know. I just didn't feel like they really got across that, like, no, they really shouldn't be doing this, because they still are. Yeah, they still are characters that we kind of, recognize and root for. And so they're, and they do kind of, they're in the final episode and the final battle sequence, whatever. And so, like, I just didn't get that vibe of, like, these are the villains, but more just, these are all the different points of view. It's like, you can have a different point of view about how to handle the apocalypse situation and, whether we believe that Gambit is too far gone to save, or like those kinds of things. Yeah, those are ethical and moral dilemmas that reasonable people can disagree about. But the locking up the kids, because it was so underexplored and it was just kind of like, we just did that, and then but they were rescued, so it's fine. Like, no, you can't put that on the table and then not interrogate it, especially in the current American situation.
Yes, it makes them a bunch of chumps, and that's not them. Yeah. Like, if that had been like something they had found out, it's like, oh, we thought that we were like bringing them to safety. The government doesn't know what to do because Xavier was handling things here. Now he's gone. What do we do with all these mutants? And then they figure out, oh no, they've decided the easiest thing to do is to just lock them up and put the power inhibitors on them. Like, oh, well, that should create an arc to where they rebel against that. But also, like, you should have someone in authority in a governmental situation watching out for people like that. So let's get rid of the bad seeds, as it were. But that's not what they do with them. They just make them a bunch of idiots. And I can only imagine. I'm outraged. I know you are. But you're handling it a lot better, at least physically, than I can see.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. And it was right there, right? With especially since, and I didn't understand the Val Cooper Mystique tease at the end. Like, were we meant to understand it?
She was Mystique the whole time.
What was she Mystique the whole time, or was this like?
She wasn't.
Right. Yeah, that was not what I got from it. And so, but yeah, if you're going to do that, like, that was what you just described would have been a million times better. That, X Factor, shows up, diffuses a situation. The kids kind of, are taken away. They don't ask enough questions. Like, their sin is that they didn't ask enough questions. And then they finally do, and then they rebel when they realize what's happening. And then, oh yes, it turns out that Val Cooper was really Mystique. And yeah, all of that makes so much more sense than X Factor and Val Cooper knowingly participate in illegal imprisonment, and then something Mystique for the future.
Yeah. And then there's this whole thing with Graydon Creed becoming president, which can you identify why that couldn't happen at this time? The series is called X-Men 97. If we're going a year further in the future, it's X-Men 98. The presidential election would be 2000. So how does he become president? Even if Kelly stepped down, that means the vice president or the speaker of the House should be the next guy. I think that's the chain of command. Like, they just wanted him to be president.
America was founded in 74 in this universe.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So. They ratified the Constitution 2 years later in the Marvel animated universe.
I do love that I didn't even think about that, because I like, but it's also like, you forget that it's still like 97, 90, because so much has happened in the first two seasons. You think it's at least several years worth of material.
Yeah.
But yeah. But yeah, I mean, I am glad we're getting a season each year, like, for the foreseeable. So
Thank
season
God.
3 is next year. Thankfully, we do not, because, like, I mean, this wasn't a huge gap in between seasons 1 and 2, but enough to where, like, okay, I'd forgotten story details and everything. So I like that it's going to be a consistent, okay, we get a season a year for however long they keep it going. That's much better than waiting years in between for 9 episodes. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know we'll probably do more deep dives. Sorry, but Jill unfortunately lost connection, but we'll continue geeking out on all this stuff plenty in the future. Wrapping up, though, I know there's a lot of topics tonight. I know we're short on time, and we do have to keep episodes under an hour because of Joshua's computer explodes apparently if we send him a file that's longer than an hour. That's just the way the world works. But guys, before we close out, thinking about all the topics tonight or anything else you want to give a shout out to, recommendations you guys have. I want to start with, so if you want to dive deeper into Green Lantern, one of the all-time classic stories is the Green Lantern, Green Arrow series by Denny O'Neil and Neil Adams. That is always a great read, and I think there are themes from that book that could carry over into this one. That is where Jon Stewart made his debut. So always recommend that series if you get it in the trade at your local comic shop or you read it on DC Universe Infinite. But that would be my recommendation. Andy, what is yours, either from anything we've discussed tonight to something totally different?
I think I'll go with something totally different that maybe I meant to mention in the lightning round. Stewart fails to save the universe. The Big Bang.
How is it? I've heard good things.
It is pretty wild. It is not just another sitcom in the Big Bang Theory universe. It is its whole separate sci-fi multiverse. It's tempting to say it's everything you thought that the Marvel multiverse saga was going to be. Just Sans, Shang-Chi, and Sam Wilson and so forth. But just I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, it goes places, and so far I've been enjoying it.
I mean, it does have some of my favorite characters from Big Bang, and I know from the trailers it is wildly different, like you said, like more action comedy. But does it do the laugh track? I'm really curious if if it's just like totally different.
That's a good question. I haven't noticed it. I feel bad if I'm missing something, but yeah, I think it's more of like a single cam style thing than a studio audience with a laugh track.
Yeah, that's cool. But I do want to check it out. I'm curious there. So good recommendation. But Christian, what about you?
I will say, despite my gripes, I really enjoyed X-Men 97 Season 2. Definitely some things I would change, as mentioned here. Probably others we've forgotten. But at the end of the day, you're not going to waste your time watching it.
Good pick. And yeah, there is a lot to dissect from it. So I think we'll continue talking about it in future episodes. But awesome. Well, guys, this has been a blast. I know we covered a lot tonight, and there's always so much happening in geek culture. So for listeners, viewers out there, thank you so much for joining us. Again, check out the links in our description for ways to support us and follow us on social media. We would love to hear from you. And remember, in brightest day, in blackest night, no geekdom shall escape our sight. Have a great night, y'all.
We just want to take a moment to ask you all to consider sponsoring our show. You can do so by becoming a member in the website down in the show's description. It takes a lot to keep this show running, as far as editing equipment, paying the site that platforms our show to, all the different mediums where you listen to your podcast, going to events. There's a lot of cost behind this. And I was thinking of the most fun way to do this I had, and I was going to do one of those songs where it's like there's a log on the lake, and then by the end it's like there's a speck in the eye of the flea on the log on the lake or something. Then I realized that would just take too long, and I don't want to bore you guys. So I'm going to list some of the benefits you can get for being a member as a thank you to those who do take some of their funds to help sponsor our show. At the free tier, you get some perks, including free episodes. Yeah, you don't even have to pay to get extra content that goes along with our annual theme, or even in collaboration with the Rethinking Faith, we're going to be doing Rethinking Comics, and you can get that on our website if you want to follow that series. As you move up to some of the paid tiers, you get access to exclusive merch only for our sponsors. You get access to the bonus questions we do each thing, and all kinds of things that are like shout outs for all tiers. You can get a shout out on the episode. All of the tiers come with some incredible benefits. As you go through some of the different ones moving up, you get different % off of our merchandise. We just straight up give you money towards purchasing stuff. Some of the tiers just get $10 a month to buy stuff from us. We do free giveaways. Some of the tiers come with birthday presents, Christmas presents, free t-shirts for our members. There are lots of things that we do because we just want to show our appreciation for those who are able to take their funds and sponsor our show. But we also want to remind you, whether or not you can financially support the show, we appreciate everyone who takes their time to listen to this. Remember that verse that's like, perhaps you're here for a time such as this. Well, perhaps you're here for a time such as sponsoring our show, or perhaps you're not here to listen to ads, and I should wrap this up.
Hey everybody, this is Alex Matthews, and I'm just here to share with you guys about the Anazao Network. Hope you guys could check out Page and Pixel, which is a podcast about books and video games. Another podcast we would love for you to check out is Your Matter Matters. It's a podcast that puts the and in faith and science. We got Let Nothing Move You with Christian Ashley going through the whole Bible, one chapter at a time. And last but not least, another one called Some Joyful Noises, a music podcast with no rhyme, rhythm, or reason. This show has no set schedule or host, but periodically has some members from the Anazao Network posting discussions about various musical topics, everything from Taylor Swift to the music of Adventure Time and more. So I hope you guys will give those a listen because I definitely will. As a matter of fact, I'm about to hit that subscribe button right now, and you should too.